Yo, what's good, everybody? It's your boy Sammy Socialite, and I'm here with another episode of the Fantasy Formula, where I give you the formula it takes to win your fantasy leagues. And it has been a crazy first 4 weeks of fantasy. I'm just gonna go ahead and start it off by saying thank you for everybody that watched my draft content. I hope you were able to find some gems in what I was telling you, and I really want to know how your fantasy season is going. So, right now, put a comment in the comment section. Send me a message on Twitter or Instagram. Ask me your fantasy questions. Let me know what questions you have and what worked for you and what didn't. But on today's episode, I'm going to break down these first crazy 4 weeks of fantasy football. The 2024 season of the NFL has been, in fantasy terms, it has been stale, it has been stagnant, it has been lackluster. Honestly, there's no right or wrong way to do a fantasy team, but I'm just going to start by saying I sincerely apologize to those of you who were able to draft players that I suggested that may have gotten hurt. Because I don't like players that get injured or have an injury history. So I'm gonna go down my original top 12 that I gave you guys. And so my number one pick was Tyreek Hill. Now, week one, Tyreek Hill had amazing Tyreek Hill numbers. 30 fantasy points, standard leagues, over 100 yards, 8 catches, touchdown. Mwah, beautiful. Now, everyone knows that his quarterback is Tua Tagovailoa. And Tua got injured. He got a concussion week two versus the Bills. With that concussion, Tyreek Hill's production has not going anywhere and not worth a first pick. But that's not his fault. It's because Tua's not there. We'll see. They're switching quarterbacks to Snoop Huntley while Tua heals, and we'll see. Maybe Snoop will be able to get Tyreek the ball. I'm hoping so. Because yeah, Tyreek is obviously one of my top fantasy players, and yeah, Tua going down. Like sometimes you just can't help it, and your player might not be hurt, but the person throwing it to him might be hurt. So a lot of things change when it comes to it, and the science of winning is knowing what players you can count on through it all. The second player that was on my top 12 list, and I didn't want him on here, but just because he was that player, I put him on here, and I should have listened because number two is Christian McCaffrey, and Christian McCaffrey has not played a single snap this season at all. So if you did draft Christian McCaffrey with your first round number one pick or your second pick, that's not my fault. I'm sorry that you drafted him. He probably won't play until mid-season, end of the season, if he even plays again. They're trying to make it seem like his injury is like career ending. My number three pick, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, Amon-Ra has been pretty quiet. It's coming. That's all I can tell you. It's coming. Amon-Ra will show out. So just keep waiting on Amon-Ra. But I will say, if someone gives you a lucrative trade offer to try to get him, look into it and see what you can get. I would sell high on Amon-Ra. My number four pick was Jamar Chase. After an offseason full of contract disputes, he decided that he was just not going to get a contract, and so he was going to play. Jamar Chase finally had that game last week. He's been doing better. So, great job if you pick Chase. Number five, Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson has had great games the whole season. Now, he has scored a touchdown, but we're waiting on the touchdown production because I know y'all are fantasy people, and a person getting 85 yards rushing on 16 carries and 5 catches for 45 yards is not enough for you, but still pretty great numbers for Bijan. His touchdowns are coming. Just keep waiting on that. Now, the number six person I had was Justin Jefferson. And Justin Jefferson has been leaps and bounds the same Justin Jefferson that he is known to be with quarterback Sam Darnold throwing him the ball. That's my biggest shock. Honestly, the biggest shock is Justin Jefferson just legitimately being still that number one receiver. And if he keeps playing like this moving forward, he might be on the rise to take my boy Tyreek's spot as my number one fantasy receiver because Jefferson is balling. Number 7 is Jahmyr Gibbs, and Gibbs has been doing what he does, catching out the backfield, running. But like I said at the beginning, David Montgomery is the goal line back, and he does take away a lot of Gibbs points in fantasy. But still a good pick. Now, number 8, A.J. Brown, wide receiver for the Eagles. He actually played week 1 and did not play week 2, 3, or 4. And he's recovering from an injury. If you drafted A.J. Brown because of me, I guess I'll take that responsibility. But yeah, I mean, people get injured. Hopefully when he comes back, he does good because the Eagles offense is completely missing him. Number 9 was Breece Hall, the running back for the Jets. And outside of 1 game out of 4, he's been a bust. And that's exactly why I had Bijan over him in my running back rankings because he just doesn't do it for me. Number 10, DJ Moore. DJ Moore has had double-digit fantasy numbers every game this season. While the touchdowns may not be there, Bijan, the numbers might not be there, but for the Bears, DJ Moore is the number 1 receiver, hands down. He's the one. Number 11, I had Jonathan Taylor for the Colts. Jonathan Taylor just injured his ankle in week 4, and moving forward, he's going to be day-to-day. Hopefully, he's not too injured because Jonathan Taylor was having a great season. Should have had him ranked over Breece Hall. And that's the last time I listened to Jets fans try to tell me something about Breece because I'm not trying to hear it. Jonathan Taylor would have been a great top 12 pick. And at number 12, someone who I admit should have been higher now that I've seen what he's done. Number 12, I had Saquon Barkley, Eagles running back, and Saquon has had a magnificent season. I'm talking about multiple touchdowns, blowing numbers out the water for fantasy. He's just been that good. So kudos to you if you got that late round, if you got that pick in the late round and you were able to get Saquon. Been a top pick this season for sure. Now, for my quarterback list, it has been, let's just say, the top quarterback so far in fantasy this season has been Jaden Daniels. And I did not have Jaden Daniels in my top 15. I actually had Caleb Williams in my top 15, and I would definitely have swapped them out. My top 5 for quarterbacks was Patrick Mahomes, who hasn't had a good fantasy game all season. Fantasy game. Now, the team is 4-0, but fantasy-wise, he just hasn't been doing what he's supposed to do. Number 2, I had Lamar Jackson. Lamar has been pretty good as a fantasy quarterback. Was he worth being the second one? We'll come to find out, but Lamar has been doing good. My third quarterback was Jalen Hurts. And without A.J. Brown, without Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts has not been very good. Sorry. Number 4 was Joe Burrow. And once again, this is another one. Joe Burrow has not been good. He just had a good game week 4. So maybe he'll get to be on track. And my 5th quarterback was Tua Tag. And game 1, Tua came out and he was balling out. He hasn't played since then because of concussion. I'm sorry, I couldn't control that. Now, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are interesting because CJ Stroud was number 6. He's had a pretty good season. Dak was 7. Dak has had an amazing season fantasy-wise. His numbers have been spectacular fantasy-wise. Number 8, Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's numbers have been crazy fantasy-wise as well. Number 9, AR, Anthony Richardson. He just got hurt this week. He had been putting up some numbers. Who's to say if AR actually comes back? He's been hurt. He gets hurt often, so we'll have to keep an eye on him. And number 10, Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been having a great fantasy season. He probably should have replaced Joe Burrow in my top 5. I know for sure Dak should have replaced Tua in my top 5. Yeah, the quarterbacks, they're really, really good. Now, for the running backs, again, and this is my official top 5 for running back. It was Bijan, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Kyron Williams, and Jonathan Taylor. And all 4 of those running backs outside of Christian McCaffrey have been balling. So, yes, I did give you the fantasy formula to get it right at running back. Now, David Montgomery was my 13th running back, but he's been a top 5 fantasy running back due to the fact that he gets the ball at the goal line. Now, if you had injuries to Pacheco, sorry about that. Derrick Henry has been balling. He was in my top 10. Now, wide receiver is all over the place. None of the people that you thought was going to be a top wide receiver has been that this season. It's just really been crazy. But what I will tell you is, with trades and waiver wire, you can make the most of your team. If you are 1-3 going into week 5 or 2-2, this is your perfect time to find players that you can trade for and make those moves. A lot of fantasy players panic at the beginning. They really panic. You can get great players for cheap. I made a trade. I'm not really sure how it's going to pan out, but I will state that it was in a dynasty league, which means I have to think more. It's not just about this season. It's about moving forward in the future. With Tyreek losing Tua, I needed another wide receiver that could produce. And so someone approached me to trade me Darnell Mooney from the Falcons if I gave him David Montgomery. And so I spiced it up because I asked him for a second round draft pick next year, which is the thing about Dynasty. You can trade draft picks and players. So I did do that trade. David Montgomery, it's going to be sad that I had to let him go, but Mooney has been doing pretty well, and I just needed a wide receiver. I had running back, I have Kyron Williams, and I also have Swift, who finally, DeAndre Swift had a game that was worth starting him in fantasy. So kudos to you. And I just can't wait to see how the rest of this fantasy season goes. I will be trying to check in with you guys every week. Like I said, comment and let me know what I said, what helps, any questions, etc. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. I'm Sammy Socialite. This is another episode of the Fantasy Formula where I give you the science behind winning your fantasy league.